Welcome back to the Lars Larson Show. It's a pleasure to be with you on a Monday. Glad to deliver honestly provocative talk radio for America. And now California. California, sanctuary state for illegal aliens, is possibly the subject of talk about secession as well. Dale Wilcox joins me now, Executive Director and General Counsel at the Immigration Reform Law Institute. Dale, what should we make of California taking the sanctuary state status and whether or not it protects illegal aliens against the rule of federal law despite the supremacy clause, and whether or not it might mean that someday California would simply break away from the rest of the United States?
You're right, Lars. California has really gone off the deep end with this law. Several years back, they had passed what they had called the Trust Act, which added restrictions on immigration enforcement. But now they've gone full Monty here and basically said, federal government, we're not going to assist you in any way, and we are going to prohibit our state and local law enforcement agencies from cooperating with you. It's an incredible brazen defiance of our federal immigration laws. And at this point, you're right. It's the shot heard around the country. California has essentially said to the federal government, stay away from us. We want nothing to do with you. And I guess secession from the union is next.
Well, I guess that may have to be it because, you know, you point out in the piece that you wrote for The Hill that you reminded us of the late Senator Ted Kennedy's words when advocating in 1965 for the law that really did change the whole landscape of immigration law. This bill will not flood our cities with immigrants. Talk to San Francisco about that. It will not relax the standards of admission, really, and it will not cause American workers to lose their jobs. It's done all three of those, hasn't it?
Absolutely. Kennedy was wrong on all counts. His 1965 bill that he championed, today we're dealing with the effects of it. And in fact, President Trump has made chain migration one of his big issues right now. And chain migration was actually instituted in that 1965 bill that Kennedy sponsored.
And how do the Democrats plan to answer that? Because I'm seeing Trump even today, President Trump, saying that without funding for a border wall, they're not going to get a deal on DACA. Now, believe me, on a purely philosophical basis, Dale, I don't like any kind of deal on DACA because you're saying we're going to allow people who are not currently legally in the country to stay in the country. But if we could get a funding deal for the wall, if we could get an end to chain migration, if we can get an end to the visa lottery and do all those things together as part of one package, as a citizen, I'd be willing to sign off on that.
I'm with you. My organization is not interested in amnesties because if history proves one thing, amnesties only make the problem worse. Every time we've had an amnesty from 86 on, it's just caused more illegal immigration. So, yeah, we're not in favor of amnesty. However, if we could get these concessions, we might consider going along with this. It has to be the border wall. It has to end chain migration and, as you mentioned, the lottery system. But I would also throw in there, we need E-Verify, a national requirement of E-Verify. That would reduce the jobs magnet, which is principally the major reason illegal aliens come to this country, and that would solve that problem.
Could we do this? Could we use Steve King, Congressman Steve King of Iowa, his idea? Because rather than requiring E-Verify, do you know what I'd rather see? I'd rather see us use the scariest federal agency around, the IRS, but use it legitimately and say, if you have an expense for your business and it involves paying somebody who's not a legal worker, you can't deduct those dollars. So if you want to deduct those wages for that person, then you have to E-Verify them. It would effectively require that every business E-Verifies, and those that choose not to could still run afoul of regular, illegal alien enforcement. But if you told those businesses to do it that way, the minute that regulation went out, an awful lot of American businesses would immediately shed all of their illegal alien workers because their bookkeepers or their business managers would tell them, boss, if you don't get rid of these illegal aliens, we won't be able to deduct them at tax time, and we're going to pay a giant check to the IRS. It would be and it wouldn't require any workplace enforcement or anything else like that. Does that make sense?
Oh, it absolutely makes sense. You hit them in the pocketbook, and they'll make the right decision. And effectively, if they do that, then it will solve the magnet problem of illegal immigration.
Because I agree with you. An awful lot of Americans, including, God bless them, some of the listeners to this show, take the position, they say, well, it's the welfare benefits, or it's the food stamps, or it's the subsidized housing. And I said, those are just cherries on top of the sundae. The sundae itself is the $12 to $15 an hour job that makes jobs in Mexico and Guatemala look like nothing by comparison. Take away the jobs, and they'll stop coming.
Absolutely. That's what the magnet is, and you mentioned DACA, and also it's this free education that they're getting for their kids from the United States taxpayers.
Well, and it may be that we got the kind of leverage position with the Democrats. Say, you want DACA? Fine, you can have DACA if you give us these other 3 things or 4 things. And if you don't want to give us those, then fine, then we'll go back to enforcing the law. Dale, it's a pleasure to have you on the program. Thanks so much for the time.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. Dale Wilcox is the executive director and general counsel, the lawyer, at the Immigration Reform Law Institute.